Welcome to Unscripted. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis, and so excited to have you here. Unscripted is a show where the audience asks the questions. I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host, the lovely Kathleen Bradley. Now, you all know her as Miss Parker from Friday. Hello.
Hey,
all right.
You're supposed to say, hey, Miss Parker. Hey, Miss Parker. Hi, boys.
And doesn't she look wonderful?
And Moshe, I must say, I love that blazer, brother. You're looking awfully good. Don't he look good? He looks very good. Well, I'm excited to be here, I must tell you. And I was co-hosting with you not too terribly long ago. We had a great show, and we're going to have even a better show today. Two of my very favorite people are here today. You're going to find out and see who they are.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to our first guest. That's Rocky Carroll. You know him as playing Joey on The Rock. You saw him on Chicago Hope, and he's been on NCIS 20-plus years now.
Yeah. So, without any further ado, Rocky, where are you?
I'm on my way to see you.
I know, Rocky Carroll. Come on.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? What's your pleasure, man? Pleasure.
Hey.
Hi.
Woo.
Hello, everybody.
Exciting.
Got a live audience. Look at that.
Yes, we do. They love you, man, and so do we.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure.
Nice to be here.
Absolutely. You know we're going to jump right on in. Nominated for a Tony, your acting career really started in the theater. So talk to us about how that really sort of set the stage for the work that was to come.
So I'm happy to announce that this year it makes it 34 years since I arrived in Hollywood. My first show was the sitcom Rock on the Fox Network.
Right,
we were on for 3 seasons, and that Sunday night block, I don't know if anybody remember that night, it was one of the proudest nights, especially for black folks in America, because we had In Living Color, there was Rock, there was Living Single, there was Martin. So that Sunday night that was our night, you know? So I'm proud to be a part of that history. But to answer your question, I came to Los Angeles as a theater actor. I was a classically trained theater actor. That's all I knew. So for me, when I came here to audition for a television show, I had never worked in television before, but I was already an actor. I was always an established actor. I had been nominated for a Tony Award for the stage, so I kind of felt like a guy who builds houses, like a carpenter. Like I can build houses, you know. And I come to Los Angeles. And if you guys aren't buying what I'm selling, I'll go somewhere else and build a house. Because I know I didn't need Hollywood to validate me as a person or an actor. So I came here as a professional, a hired gun.
Right.
This is what I do. I build houses. You need me to build a house here? I'll build a house. So that was my mindset. Right. So I never, and that's not out of arrogance or anything else. It was just I had a skill set. I knew what it was that I wanted to do as an actor. And if I couldn't do it here in Hollywood, I was going to do it somewhere else. And that was just kind of the mindset. I was like, if y'all don't need me, let me know, because I got a plane to catch. But I got very fortunate. I walked in, and Charles Dutton, who played Rock, who was the star of the show, he and I were on Broadway together. In 1990, we were on the Broadway stage together. By the fall of 1990, we were on a sound stage. I was on my first television show, and I remember looking at him and saying, "Don't you leave me out here. If you decide you don't want to do TV anymore, don't you leave me out here, because I don't know what I don't know." And that was sort of the beginning of my journey here, and it's been 34 years. It's been great.
Because and what is so wonderful about you that you are from Ohio.
Born and raised.
Cincinnati, yeah. I'm from, all right, the Ohio people in the house. Okay. All right, I'm from Ohio. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. Really, Girard. Not too many people know where that is, but, you know, it's such a nice place to be from.
It's a good place to be from,
and, you know, it really builds character with the seasons and our upbringing back there, and so much differently than being raised in a more popular place like Los Angeles or New York or something. And there are so many entertainers and people from Ohio. It is phenomenal. I want to do a book one day just about entertainers and people from Ohio. There are many of them. But I know you did get your roots in the theater, like he said. And really, what kind of went through your mind at your earliest stages when you were even in Ohio. Did you really think you'd be at this stage in your life where you are right now? With
You know,
your
it's
career?
funny. I have a daughter who will be 23 years old in May, and she has no desire to be in show business whatsoever. And like a normal 23-year-old, she's still trying to find her way. She's still trying to decide what she wants to do. Like, she's going to school, she wants to get a degree in psychology, but she may want to do something else. And I tell her all the time, I said, I was a very strange child because at age 7, laying in the front yard in the grass in my parents' house, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Wow. This plan was in motion since age 7. So I'm sitting here across from you guys saying that I have basically lived my entire adult life doing exactly what it was that I dreamed of doing when I was 7 years old, laying in the yard looking up at the sky. Now, most people don't have that, don't get that gift. You know, you dream about what you want to be when you grow up, and you do whatever you have to do, right? I was very fortunate, and I tell my daughter, I said, the fact that if you're in your 20s or you're in your 30s, I know people in their 50s who are still trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives, right?
Sometimes
so,
older.
But to me, I said I was just I don't know what it was, divine inspiration or whatever, but I knew at a very early age. I was more comfortable standing in front of 500 people than I was standing in front of 5 people. Wow. I said, that's not normal. That's not right. I was that kid in church when they gave out the speeches for Easter. My speech would be this long because they were like, he talks all the time. Let him, you know. So there was something. I think even as a child, you know, like, and the other kids where I grew up would say, you should be on TV. I thought they were being complimentary, right? They were like, I didn't realize how, you know, how different that my mindset and my whole thought process was. But I guess this plan was put in motion at a very early age.
The divine order, we call it. Yeah. Divine order, yes.
You talked about the theater and then going into TV. I want to bring up Crimson Tide because at that time that was also a monumental movie with some of the most gigantic actors. What did that feel like, and what was that experience like? You
know, that's funny. Crimson Tide was a movie, submarine movie, starring Denzel Washington, Gene Hackman, directed by Tony Scott. And this movie took place. We shot that movie in the mid-1990s, and it's so funny that's not ancient history, but I guess in Hollywood it really is, because the caliber of talent in that one movie, I don't think today you could make that same movie and have, you know, that many people of that caliber of talent. And a lot of them were about to become household names. They were on the verge of superstardom. James Gandolfini wasn't Tony Soprano. Right. Viggo Mortensen hadn't starred in all the movies that he was in. Right. And there were so many other people who were you know, kind of connected to that movie, who went on to bigger and better things. So when I look back on it, it's like, you know, there were all these people who were just on the cusp of like becoming household names, becoming stars or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you did a movie with Tony Soprano. I said, yeah, but he wasn't Tony Soprano at the time. It was a great film. We shot it here in Los Angeles. And it's so funny how history kind of, you know, repeats itself. Even though that movie was almost 30 years old now, it was about tense relationships between the United States and Russia. Here we are in 2024. Right. You could make that movie today and it would still be relevant. That's kind of crazy.
You know, you've done so many series and television shows, more so than film, I believe. And out of all of the shows that you've done on television, which one was more favorable to you, that you like perhaps more than any of the others, and for whatever reason? And I'm sure there's different reasons for different shows.
Yeah.
So
well, you know, like I said, I was a trained actor, so I started out doing a comedy, and I've spent the last 16 years now doing a drama, playing the head of a federal agency. And like you said, they all have different. For me, Rock was very seminal. Rock was about a black family. It was a sitcom, but it was a sitcom that had heart and soul. And people to this day tell me that, you know, that show to them was so much more than just a sitcom, because we were dealing with issues in the black community, how the drug culture affected, you know, black families just trying to stay together, a cohesive black family. There was a husband and a wife, and there was a father, and and all the things that kind of what we were dealing with. And we were only on the.
Excuse me, what year was that?
That was 1990.
1990.
1990,
Yes,
beginning of the decade.
Ahead of its time.
From 1990 to 1993, we were on the air. Richard Roundtree played a guest star. We had the first. who played our openly gay uncle. Here's the man who made his name as Shaft.
Yeah, right.
But as an actor, took on this role, and we actually had the gay wedding on our show. This was in 1990, so we were so ahead of the curve as far as. And I think that part of it was the fact that we were on you think about the Fox network now as sort of, part of our culture now. In 1990, it was pretty much a new network.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were able to try some new things. We could tackle themes that a lot of other shows couldn't.
Right.
The second season of our show, we did every episode live. Like we were shooting it when we were doing it when you were watching it.
Right.
And it was only because it was a brand new network, and Charles Dutton basically said, "I'm getting bored," and I said, "Don't get bored and leave me." Remember what I said? But he said, let's raise the stakes. Let's do the show live. Because we're all stage actors. We all come from the theater. So let's do this thing live. Let's work without a net. And people tell me to this day that was like one of their favorite things. So that show is probably the most important to me. NCIS is the show that I've now been a part of for so many years. Right. And it took somebody else from the outside to say to me, they said, you know what I love about the thing that I think about you with regard to this show, as a regular on this series, you broke the color barrier on this show before you came on, and you came on as the boss. You came on. You came on,
and you weren't killed off.
So, and I say all that to say, because we talk about, if you're a person of color and you see, what the images that you see growing up, if you don't see yourself in those images, if you don't see yourself running the world, if you don't see yourself saving the day, if you don't see yourself as the hero, as somebody who can aspire to greatness, and it is consciously or unconsciously, most of us grew up in an era. I grew up in an era where if there was somebody black on TV, everybody called and said, "Hey, somebody, one of us is on TV."
Right, you gotta watch.
My daughter now lives in she lives in a world where being president of the United States and being a person of color is absolutely achievable.
Yes,
because she's seen it. Right. So we sometimes forget how important images are. So I had another friend of mine who was an actor on the show basically say to me, he said, the first thing I thought when I saw you on NCIS is, he broke the color barrier, and he broke the color barrier as a person in charge.
Right.
That's right.
And how that, whether you watch one episode or all 21 seasons of it, it impacts you. And as a young person, there's some young man or young woman who sees that and says, I could do that someday. Right. That, to me, is the most important thing.
That's kind of how I felt when I was on The Price is Right as the first black model as Bob Barker Beauty for 10 years. And I understand what you're saying about that show, because being the first and just being able to represent our culture and our black people, and having so many aspiring young black women, young girls look up to me, and make sure that, and I always had to be very careful. And I did feel that being a role model in that respect was very important. A lot of our artists and people nowadays, and rappers and young ladies, they just do stuff, and sometimes they are role models, but it's kind of wrong role models. So I really kind of, in a sense, applaud myself and my bringing up, once again, to allow me to be that kind of person that those young ladies like to aspire to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you were saying that earlier, that Midwestern upbringing, I said, nobody in my family was in show business other than me, but they all had a work ethic. If you were going to get up, you don't live in this house, you're going to get up, you're going to go to work, you're going to do something and be productive during the day.
That's right.
And, like you said, I've met so many people in the entertainment business who were from Cleveland, Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. And I said, well, what, did we all leave at the same time? We all just everybody turned 18 and decided to leave? But there's that work ethic and people say, well, what was it that you brought with you, your upbringing from home? I said, that was that sense. I was going to come, whether it was show business or working at General Motors or whatever it was, I was going to show up and put in a full day's work. I had a work ethic. I was going to come to work. I was going to do the best job I possibly could and make myself valuable to the company.
That's right.
Because that was the work ethic that I was taught.
Yep.
And if you lived in this house, you're going to work.
Yeah, you're going out, and you're going out in the rain, sleet, or snow, come hell or high water.
And I don't care what the problems are, what the economy is, and what the odds are against you. If you're living in this house, you're going to get up. You're going to get up looking for work, if nothing else. Absolutely. And that was always sort of the mindset that I had.
Sure. Well, we're going to make you work now. What makes the show different is that the audience gets to ask questions. So we're going to turn the spotlight on our other stars and take questions from you guys. So
I was thinking, was there a role that got away? Was there anything that you could have done that you wish you had done, movie-wise or TV-wise, that you turned down?
It's funny. I had a work ethic even before I started getting hired. There were things that I would read and I would say no to, and casting directors would be like, he doesn't even have a job. How is he saying no? But I knew then, if I don't set boundaries for what I will and won't do before I become discovered, by the time you do, it's too late. Because once you've established yourself and once this town believes that you'll take on any role or you'll do whatever, they don't care what your boundaries are by that point. So I established boundaries as an actor saying, you know, if I read something, I was like, well, I wouldn't even watch this. Why would I be in it? You know? So I had a, for me, there was a certain level of quality. There was a certain level of taste. There was a certain level of things that I wouldn't do, especially as a black performer. And I was doing that before they even hired me. So I would get an audition for something and I wouldn't go. And the casting people were like, hey, he doesn't have a job. Why would he not show up? Because I knew if I got this job and I became successful in this role, this is the kind of stuff you would expect me to do. And if I'm saying, if I can make this statement now at whatever age I was then, that this is not of my liking, this is beneath me, this is my taste, then I can stand on that now 33 years later. So, and I always got one of the best pieces of advice I got was from LaTanya Richardson, who was married to Sam Jackson. She's Sam Jackson's wife, LaTanya, who's a brilliant actress who I knew in New York City. And we were on a train together coming from somewhere, and somebody was talking about a role that they didn't get. And this is a little different from what you're talking about. But I never coveted or thought about if there was a role or something that somebody else got, that even if I went out for it and I wanted the part, I never thought like, oh, that role was mine. Because she said to me, she goes, how is it yours and you never had it? If it was yours, you'd have it. If you were meant to play this character, if you were meant to be on this show, if you were meant to be in that movie, it would happen. Nobody's ever taken a role away from me because if it was my role, I would have done it. So I always had that mindset that, you know, especially among us, because there's a very small community of performers. So I'm always cheering for the people, especially for performers of color. I'm your biggest cheerleader. I'll never walk up to another brother and say that, you know what, that was my role. I was up for that same role. You got it, and it's like, why am I throwing that energy out at you? What are you gonna do with that? The universe pays you, what you put into the universe brings back. So if I'm bringing that kind of energy to people of color and saying to you, like when I see you, yo man, I was supposed to have that role, you got it instead of me. I'm like, and then you're gonna complain about why things aren't going well for you? What are you putting out into the universe? So that was always kind of my mindset, but I always praise and credit LaTanya for telling me. She's like, remember, nobody has ever taken a role away from you. If it was yours, you'd have it.
I want to talk about a role that a lot of people don't know that you play, which is being the director. Talk to us about sort of what inspires you and what challenges you in that.
Well, I'm actually on both sides of the camera now, so I've been very fortunate. Having been with NCIS long enough, I started out primarily in front of the camera. I now I actually play the director in front of the camera, and I'm actually the director of episodes behind the camera now. I've done over close to 25 episodes as the director, and you know, and people ask me, so which one do you like more? I said, well, the one that I was trained to do initially was being an actor, and as an actor, you show up, you get in the hair and makeup, you stand on your mark, you know your lines, and when somebody else has to do all the thinking for you. As a director, it's a whole different animal. You're the first one there and you're the last one to leave. I tell everybody, I say, it's like being the royal wedding planner. You have to be responsible for everything. Lights, sound, hair, makeup. And while they're changing the sets and adjusting the lighting, somebody from the wardrobe department's got a question for you. Somebody from the sound department has questions for you. Somebody from hair, special effects. What about the stuff that we're shooting tomorrow? Can you take a look at this and make sure that it's like being a wedding planner. It's like it never stops. So what I love about directing, being behind the camera, being a director, is that I feel like now I've learned a second language. At this stage in my life, after all the success and stuff I've had in my career, I've learned to speak another language. Mm-hmm. And I tell people this all the time. You can come into this business as an established actor, you got a great talent or whatever, more power to you. You can come into this business, and once you get in the door, what you do once you get in the room is purely on you. I don't care how you got in the door. If you're the nephew of the executive at Warner Brothers, more power to you. But now that you're in there, if you don't take what's available and learn to grow from it. If I'm sitting with a band, if I'm sitting here as a roadie with a band and somebody's offering to teach me how to play the guitar, I'm gonna learn to play the guitar. Right. And that's the beautiful thing about our business is that you can learn. You don't have to have the. If you stick around the right people, you stay on a set like this, you can learn the ins and outs of it. Subjects become kings in Hollywood. I say you better treat that those production assistants and those first and second ADs that you meet, because in about 15 years ago, one of them's going to be a studio executive. Very true. So that person that you threw shade at because they were bringing you coffee 15 years ago when you were on this set, the next time you see them, they may be running a studio. Right. So and that's just how that's how the system works, because sometimes people come in on an entry level, but we don't have the Hollywood system is. If you are intuitive, if you're smart enough, and if you're ambitious enough, you can, sky's the limit how far you can go. So every time somebody knocks on my door and says, Mr. Carroll, they'll be seeing you in 5 minutes, I think to myself, that might be the next executive over at Warner Brothers. So I better, you go treat them all the respect that possibly could, because when I'm the old man might need a favor from that person years from now.
Right,
so,
like working in the mailroom.
Exactly, working your way up. Exactly.
Owning the whole place.
Peasants, like I said, subjects become kings.
You're right.
So, yeah.
When you guys went live, was there politics to that where you guys couldn't control what you did, and does that affect you now? Like when you went live, and was there an issue with them going live and then? Because it was theater, really, it's really acting.
It really was.
It was great. It was the best thing we saw, and I was loving it. But I know politics of studios. You have to change that. And did that affect you? And are you working for your own production company? I mean, you're behind the camera, but do you do your own stuff because of that?
Well, I'll tell you, and like I said earlier, part of the thing that was working in our favor was in 1990, the Fox network was relatively new. So they could afford to be a little more experimental, go against the grain, because they were still trying to develop an audience. And history has shown that a lot of new networks in the system, they will, especially black-themed shows, Sunday night on the Fox network in 1990, like I said, it was us. Mm-hmm. Once that audience was built, a lot of those shows suddenly began to disappear. Yeah. But that Sunday night, when you had In Living Color, Rock, Living Single, Mark, that's where they built an audience of viewers, not just black viewers of all races, creeds, and colors. And once that network became successful, there was no longer that need for that Sunday night didn't look the same anyway. Suddenly, shows, all the shows that became popular after us, whether it was Melrose Place, 90210, all the other stuff, we were the bedrock for that, because we created the viewing audience. That night on Fox Network created a viewing audience that was going to stay there regardless of what the programming was. But I always find it very admirable that a lot of these networks grow and are built on black television, on black programming. So
that is true.
Yeah. So, but to do it live for us was like, that's just like playing. It was like playing a game of horse, because we all came from the theater. It was like, oh, this is fun now. And what it also did too was it created a stronger bond between us and our crew, because everybody now, you're the sound guy. The lighting guy has as much at stake at any moment than the people on stage. Now everybody's got that heightened sense of like, okay, this could go off the rails. We need to tighten up. Nobody's having a cigarette holding their mic. It's like everybody's working. Everybody has the same energy. It's like the crew, the cast, everybody knows that at any moment this thing could go sideways. Right. So everybody's locked in. I'm as locked in with the sound guy as I am with our lighting guy, with hair, makeup, and we all are kind of working towards this thing, and it's got that live energy, man. And if I ever did get into production, what I'd like to do would be something that brings that energy back to the screen. So,
So where do you see yourself in the future, primarily maybe in movies or doing some film, or even producing, directing any movies or film, or starring roles, something?
You know what I love about directing is, because when television finally says we're tired of seeing your face, I can sit back, I can be behind the camera, and I love talking to we have people that come on our show, younger generations of actors now, who I'm just sort of getting to know, who are coming up, and you have to kind of take it with realize that it is a compliment when you have a young actor saying to you, "Oh, I used to watch your show when I was 5 years. My babysitter used to turn on the TV when you were." I was like, wait a minute, you were standing in the crib watching the TV show. Now you're on. Now I'm sitting here working opposite with you. So there are generations of young actors who basically say, "Oh, yo, man, I was a young kid and I saw you on TV," and it goes back to that. You see it and then you think you can be it, and I'm just like, hey, so. I'm excited about the younger generations of actors, filmmakers, and all stuff who are coming around. As I get older, my running joke is I don't want to work as hard as I did before. I'm enjoying. You want to bring me in occasionally for a little something here and there, I'm good. But I love talking about the business, and I think directing is probably going to be more my forte than being in front of the camera. And I don't have to remember dialogue when I'm behind the camera as well either. So we'll see.
Absolutely, I know how that feels. Even like when you were saying before about, I'm a little older now in life, and I've experienced quite a bit in the theater and acting and movies and what have you. And from time to time, I'll get some calls to do some commercials or something, and I'll look at it. And first of all, it's not really always about the money first, and you know that. It's about the quality of different things. And I feel comfortable in my skin now, knowing that I have a wonderful family, great husband, and I'm like you. I don't want to work as much anymore. And thank God at some point we can pick and choose.
Right.
Not everybody's able, but you want to get to that point.
Yeah.
You just have to work hard. We've worked hard in our career and profession, so I'm just enjoying doing this right now too. It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
No, absolutely. And I see another young lady there.
Hi, I think that you've already answered my question, but I just thought I'd hint a little bit more. I'm glad to know that you're behind the camera and doing more producing and directing. But is there a genre or role that you think has eluded you? For example, I used to watch The Game, and I love seeing you do comedy and also do a romantic role.
Wow.
And is that a role that you think that you weren't cast out of, because you're a professional at NCIS, you're like the boss. But is there like a role that you felt that, hey, I think I really wanted to sink my teeth into, and I never got cast that way? Or that type?
No, not especially in television and film, because it's such a medium. There's so many things that are out of your control. You could go into an audition for a movie or a TV show and be the absolute perfect person or give the best audition. But if you're a foot taller than the leading man, you're not going to get the job.
Right.
Or if sometimes it's a matter of how people look standing next to each other. There's so many, especially now when you're on the production side. An actor or an actress will come in and give a brilliant audition, and me, the actor, I'm like, that was the best choice. You hear all the other reasons why they think, well, standing next to our lead actor who's only 5'4" and she's 5'9", and 9 times out of 10, you won't get a role. Which has nothing to do with whether or not you're talented enough to do it. Sometimes it's just a matter of pairing. It's just a matter of this. Or the nephew of Sony may have auditioned for it.
Right.
And you just happen to come in after the guy whose nephew's, is auditioning for the same role. So there's so many other reasons for that. What I love about being, like I said, feeling like I have a skill set as an actor, if there's ever a time where I feel like I'm not being appreciated for what I can do as an actor, I can go back. I can be as happy in a 30-seat theater doing a play or doing a production that I love, something that I feel like I can sink my teeth in. Having all the success that I've done with television and film over the last 30 some odd years, having been on NCIS now for 16 years, the luxury that it's given me is, if I'm not feeling like that I'm being utilized or that my talent is really being pushed, I can do a play in a 50-seat theater and be just as happy, because I know, first of all, I can pay the bills, I can keep the lights on, and that whatever that creative thing that I feel is missing, because sometimes I really feel like, lately, especially with social media and YouTube, we've been hearing a lot about performers saying that they feel either underappreciated in certain ways or whatever. And I remember feeling that way. So it's valid. I remember feeling that way at one point. And there was another older actor who's no longer with us, who I value. I was at a friend's house. My buddy Earl Billings was having a party, and I was complaining about not feeling validated in Hollywood. And he literally pulled me aside and he says, "You're an actor. You're a professional actor. It's like you're a carpenter. You don't have to be validated for who you are at this town. Go to Atlanta and do a play you know, go to the Alliance. You could go to a theater, a 40-seat, 50-seat, 200-seat theater, do a 3-month production of something and feel as validated and worthy as possible. But don't you wait for this town to validate you.
Amen. Amen.
So,
Amen.
And not everybody has that ability, because we all come in from different schools of thought. But I was a stage actor. I was a trained actor. That was my. It's kind of like, you know, if you haven't been to church in a while and you go back to church and you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, I certainly miss. I always feel that way when I go back to the theater. And he called me out. He said, go back to the theater. You know, and 2 weeks later, I was doing a play in I think we went to Baltimore. We went to it turned out to be about a 6-month run, and by the time I finished the run with that play, I felt like I felt so validated. I felt like everything that I could do, everything that I felt like I was not being utilized for, I felt that and more. And I wasn't doing it on TV. I wasn't doing it in films. Sometimes it was a 300-seat theater, but for me, it was exactly what I needed. So having the ability to have that self-awareness that sometimes the validation that you're looking for, you can find it in other places. And I was very fortunate over my career to be able to do that.
Yeah. So. You know, that is so true. A lot of things you're saying really hit home for me as well. And knowing that, like you say, being validated here in Los Angeles or Hollywood, you know, like, and for me as well, and I hate to keep talking about myself, but I'm relating to what you're saying, and you know, going away and even doing special appearances outside of Los Angeles and Baltimore, Ohio, back home, and anywhere, the people there are so much more appreciative.
Right.
And you realize how
that's so much talent
and
here.
you need that from time to time, and I need to do that sometimes and go back, and they want to see pack the place, come see Miss Parker, pack the place, see The Price is Right, whatever, and sign some autographs and stuff. Here, you can't really do that. There's so much going on here that nobody really gives a darn. It's like you see a star going to the grocery store every day. It's a typical thing. But so what we give to them, and it makes me feel very good as well to know that I can go back there and bring some happiness to people who really appreciate you.
You know, my running joke is, I said, you know, I go back home to L.A., it's like I'm an alien from another planet. People are like, oh my God, I'm standing in the store. I'm like, they don't get this in L.A. In L.A., you know what you get in L.A.? When somebody sees you and they recognize you, the first thing they say is, you know who else I saw? who's more famous than you?
No.
So when it's like anything. It's like, you live in a city like this. Sometimes you just need to get in. You need to get away. You know, when you go out, you go visit, or you go back to family, you go back home or whatever, and you feel rejuvenated. You feel like, okay, I can go back to this big city and handle it, take on. But one of my favorite stories, and this is only an LA story. I'm at a golf course at the driving range. I go to the driving range, and in the stall next to me is Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman is practicing hitting golf balls, right? And I'm like, Morgan Freeman, right? Now I'm doing television, you know, I'm like, but I'm still thinking to myself, like, yo, that's Morgan Freeman. And I said, I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna say hello, and I'm gonna keep it moving, right? So I'm not gonna make a scene or whatever it was. And I went over and I said hello to him. I said, hey, Mr. I went to introduce myself. And Morgan Freeman, he said, I know who you are. I was like, and I was like, Morgan Freeman watches TV.
Right.
Who would have thought?
So we had like a 5-minute chat. He said, I know who you are, man. He said, I saw you on Broadway, and we were chit-chatting back and forth. And it was just one of those moments where it was like here's the only in Hollywood part, right? So I have my few minutes, and I'm like, look, you probably have about 5 minutes of spare time in your life right now. I'm gonna let you get back to hitting golf balls. Hey man, thanks for chatting with me. I really appreciate it. I had my moment with Morgan Freeman, my brush with greatness. I'm ready. I'm moving on, right?
Yes.
I'm done. I'm going back in my stall now to hit golf balls.
There you go.
This young guy walks up to me. He sees me, and like Morgan Freeman is on the other side of me, right? He walks up and looks at me and he goes, oh my God. And then he pauses and he looks over his shoulder and sees Morgan Freeman and he looks at me and goes, I'll be right back.
From hero to zero, just like that.
It was nobody else. Like, I said, I get it, dude. I get it. If I was talking to me and I saw Morgan Freeman over my shoulder, I'd be second on the food chain as well. But I'm like, that only happens in LA. Yeah.
Well, you've definitely validated us today. I hope that you'll stick around. We've got another excellent guest, so hang out. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Thanks.